Rafael Nadal acknowledges Novak Djokovic as the greatest of all time after the final in Australia. Spanish tennis player Rafael Nadal has publicly stated that Novak Djokovic is the greatest player in the history of the sport, based on the records accumulated by the Serbian over recent decades. The statement was made during a recent interview with the Spanish press, where the Mallorcan idol analyzed the careers of his main competitors and the impact of the titles won on the ATP World Tour. Nadal emphasized that the statistical data are indisputable and that he has no hesitation in admitting the numerical superiority of his former rival on the court. Sportswear. During the conversation with local journalists, Nadal detailed the reasons that lead him to place the Serbian in a position alone at the top of professional sport. He highlighted that longevity and physical endurance were determining factors that allowed Djokovic to surpass the Grand Slam title mark set by himself and Roger Federer. The Asturian's analysis takes into account not only Djokovic's refined technique, but also the emotional and physical recovery capacity that the current world number 3 has demonstrated at crucial moments in his career. Rafael Nadal explained that Novak Djokovic's body allowed for a consistency that he himself could not maintain due to the successive injuries he faced from the beginning of his professional career. The Spaniard recalled that he was absent from several major tournaments due to physical problems, while the Serbian maintained a more preserved and efficient athletic structure for prolonged high performance. According to Nadal, this physical availability is a sporting merit that must be taken into account when evaluating who achieved the best historical results. The ability to deal with frustration was also a key point mentioned by the 14-time Roland Garros champion when describing Djokovic's behavior. Nadal observed that the Serbian can process defeats and mistakes extremely quickly, returning to compete at the highest level almost instantly after a setback. For the Spaniard, this mental strength, combined with superior physical condition, explains why Djokovic managed to isolate himself as the biggest winner of Grand Slam tournaments to date. Novak Djokovic is currently pursuing his 25th title. Although the Serbian's last major title came in 2023, his presence in the final stages remains constant on the tour, even with the rise of young talents. Nadal acknowledges that the effort to maintain this level of competitiveness at the age of 38 is a rare feat that deserves to be celebrated by sports enthusiasts worldwide. Sportswear. The numbers cited by Nadal include not only Grand Slams, but also the record number of titles, reinforcing that he never allowed his ego to rise to the point of not recognizing the reality of the facts presented by official tennis statistics. For him, the debate about the greatest of all time finds an objective answer when analyzing the trophy cabinet and the consistency shown by the Serbian over 2 decades. The rivalry between Nadal and Djokovic is considered one of the most intense in sports history, with more than 60 matches played on different surfaces. While the Spaniard dominated clay in an unprecedented way, the Serbian demonstrated a versatility that allowed him to win repeatedly on all surfaces, from Wimbledon's grass to hard courts. This versatility is one of the pillars supporting Nadal's argument about the supremacy of his professional colleague, who continues to challenge new generations. Djokovic's technical evolution over the years was also indirectly highlighted by the observations of his main opponent. The Serbian managed to adapt his game to minimize physical wear, improving his serve and efficiency in short points to compensate for his advanced age. Djokovic's tactical intelligence is seen by analysts and by Nadal himself as the key to continuing to compete in finals against much younger athletes, such as Spaniard Carlos Alcaraz and Italian Jannik Sinner. Nadal's declared support for Alcaraz in last Sunday's final reflects the national connection between the two Spaniards, but it does not change his technical perception of the Serbian rival. The veteran noted that seeing young compatriots win is gratifying, but respect for Djokovic's career remains unshaken. The tour now watches how the Serbian will react to this new pressure from young players, who are seeking to find their way back to success in the upcoming clay and grass tournament scheduled for this year. Rafael Nadal ended his professional career after the Paris 2024 Olympic Games, leaving behind a legacy of 22 Grand Slam titles and an Olympic gold medal. His decision to stop was based on accumulated wear and the perception that his body no longer responded to the demands of elite-level competition. By analyzing Djokovic now as a spectator and former athlete, Nadal shows a clarity that only distance from the court tends to give to the great champions in history. The gold medal won in Beijing 2008 and the 14 victories in Paris remain almost unreachable milestones, but Nadal prefers to focus on Djokovic's entire career to justify his choice. He believes that honesty in recognizing the success of others strengthens the sport and educates future practitioners about the importance of concrete data. The Spaniard remains involved in his academy and social projects, closely following the development of tennis and the constant evolution of the records he helped build. Nadal's words quickly resonated across news portals worldwide, sparking debates among fans and experts about the criteria for greatness. Many argue that playing style and cultural impact of Federer or Nadal could weigh in the balance, but the criterion adopted by Nadal is strictly statistical. For the sports publishing market and sports managers, this validation from a peer of the same level puts an end to subjective discussions and focuses on measurable technical performance. Mutual recognition among members of the Big Three has always been a hallmark of this golden era of tennis, despite fierce competitiveness. Djokovic had previously praised Nadal in a similar way, especially for the Spaniard's endurance on slow surfaces. Now, with the definitive endorsement of one of his greatest critics and opponents, the Serbian enters the final phase of his career with the certainty that his place in history is consolidated by the vision of his own elite peers. Riccardo Piatti, who was Djokovic's coach 2 decades ago, believes he is a serious candidate for the Wimbledon title this year. Novak Djokovic never left. At the Australian Open he showed that he will continue fighting until his body says enough. He defeated Jannik Sinner in the semi-finals and stood up to Carlos Alcaraz in the grand final. That is why some believe that if he continues to take care of himself this way, he will have another opportunity to reach Grand Slam number 25. His former coach, Riccardo Piatti, told L'Équipe that at Wimbledon he will again be a serious title contender. Not at Roland Garros. Because he is convinced that he is back. He began preparing for this Australian Open on December 1 last year. He knows that at his age he needs even more preparation, simply because he is older. In fact, other players of different ages have less time than him because they don't have the same schedule, said the man who also trained Jannik Sinner. He points out that he lost the final because his body could not take it anymore. In the final, we saw again that Novak's only problem was his age and, therefore, his physical condition. I respect his efforts to prepare again for these big events, and I respect him even more after this tournament. He does not see him retiring anytime soon. He loves this sport and wants to be very competitive. If he continues, it's because he believes he can always evolve more. Roland Garros will necessarily be more complicated for him, but we must not forget him if an opportunity arises at Wimbledon. What I know is that at the end of this Australian Open, Novak is back. He is the most obsessed with his tennis. I just hope he stays healthy and can prepare as well as possible, the coach details. And to close, he issues a very important warning to Alcaraz and Sinner. Jannik and Carlos would do well to be careful. The economic and reputational fortune that the renowned tennis player enjoys today has been built on sweat, tears, and enormous effort. This was commented on by his mother, Diana, who had to work very hard when the Serbian was just a child in order to pay for his tennis lessons. We had a pancake and pizza shop in the mountains. The first time he had a racket he was 3 years old. We worked there, so when he started to grow and needed more, when he started traveling, going to academies, everything cost money. So we worked harder and harder to give it to him, she declared in an interview with GQ in 2019. However, the matriarch stated that he didn't know we didn't have money. We borrowed and I paid them back with my work, Diana clarified. At the time of this interview, the tennis player had just won his 16th Grand Slam at Wimbledon. One more added by Djokovic to his long and extensive list of achievements, each of them celebrated by his mother. Impactful response from Nadal to Mouratoglou's statement about Sinner and Djokovic. Mouratoglou compares the big three with Alcaraz, Sinner and triggers Nadal's response. Patrick Mouratoglou has prompted a reaction from Rafael Nadal on social media. Accustomed to sharing his opinions in short clips published on his Instagram account, the French coach evoked that day the comparison between the big three and the Alcaraz-Sinner rivalry. Mouratoglou's statement. For those who think that Djokovic's victory against Sinner in the Australian Open semifinals means that the big three play better tennis than Alcaraz and Sinner, this is an overly simplistic view. Let me explain. First of all, they are drawing hasty conclusions from a single match. Don't forget that Sinner had won their 5 previous encounters. One match will not make me change my opinion about what I have observed over the last 2 or 3 years. Jannik is faster, hits harder, takes the ball earlier, and serves better than Novak. But Novak has the strongest mentality in the history of tennis, and that made the difference. That is what forged his career. Sinner won 12 more points than Novak during the match, but lost because Novak knew how to win the decisive points, the ones that mattered most. Novak is not a better tennis player than Sinner, but he is the greatest competitor in history, and he was better than Jannik Sinner in that match. Rafael Nadal's response. A blunt analysis that has generated numerous comments, among which one stands out in particular. In fact, Rafael Nadal's account reacted with emojis that said a lot about what he thought of the former Serena Williams coach's analysis. Faced with these statements by Mouratoglou, Rafa Nadal reacted with several emojis, including laughter. A sign that probably tells us that the Spaniard does not agree with his words.